down where the pagans go, where the fires are high and the candles glow. Take me down to that magical place where they're dancing and swaying at a feverish pace. Take me away on a mystical ride, moving through the veil to the other side. Fill me up with spirit songs of power and love's alive. Take me down where the pagans go, where the fires are high and the candles glow. Take me down to that magical place where they're dancing and swaying at a feverish pace. Take me away on a mystical ride, moving through the veil to the other side. Fill me up with the spirit songs of power and love's alive. Take me down through the 7 gates where I'll cast my being to the hands of fate. Take me down to the dragon's lair where myth and legend ride the air. Let me rise on the messenger's wings, let me see what the future brings. Fill me up with the spirit songs of power and love's alive. Take me down where the pagans.
The people have vanished, but from China to old Europe, they left us their strange standing stones. Their placement suggests they were used to track the moon. Satellite sites now reveal that they all stand on energy lines which crisscross the Earth. Stones have always been seen as reservoirs of power, described by the ancients as the Great Round, the cosmic egg of the goddess. Symbol of healing and prophecy, the serpent was always associated with goddess religions. Those times when women still shared the center of civilization.
Hello, welcome again to Keepers of the Flame. I'm Reverend Alicia Lyon-Fulbreth.
And I'm Iris Shossi.
And we decided to do a special on sacred places in the Northeast. And there's actually, unbeknownst to a lot of people, there's a lot of historic sites that are actually still here. And, you know, they are ancient sites. And, you know, for us, you know, being modern pagans, I think that's very important that we, you know, respect that and that we honor that. One of the first things that we actually went out to was Indian Well. And we also visited the Balanced Rock in North Salem, New York. You know, that was the whole thing that got me onto, you know, ancient sites.
Yes.
You know, is because I grew up in North Salem, New York. And when you've got, you know, what everybody's saying is a Celtic dolmen at the bottom of the mountain where you grew up, you know, that kind of sticks with you.
Yeah, curiosity.
Yeah, it does.
You want to know where it came from, why it's there.
That's right.
What other ones that could be in the area?
Well, you know, it's kind of funny because a lot of us just really didn't know. There was a book that I'm sure you can still find, at least at the North Salem Public Library, called When Our Town Was Young. And I was totally, totally fascinated with that book because that talked about North Salem's early days. It was founded in 1731, of course, by white people. There were native people before that. And they were very much so in that area. North Salem, you know, does have a couple of rivers going through it, and you know the area is really quite lovely and it's beautiful, and people were using it for farming. You know, the land is actually very rich,
Really?
even though it's got a lot of rocks in it.
Is that something you guys would talk about in school? That's such a great big part of where you lived.
You know, I was thinking, you know, even as I was coming over here, you know, I was so privileged, I think, in some sense, when I was a kid, because one of the things that they talked about wasn't just the history, is the fact that I was in school when we hit the bicentennial year. And that was something, because we spent a whole year on history. We spent a history on the town, history of like New York State, New England, American history. So, it was a whole lot of things that they drilled into us within that 1 year time frame. There were also other things that I did at the time, too. There were things like the Rochambeau March. They were doing a reenactment of that, and I joined up with that, for, I think it was right around 4th of July weekend then.
Well, you had a lot of great exposure when you were a child.
Yeah, I think that
didn't,
there was the history, and I think that in New York State that that they didn't gloss over the history. That was automatically a given of something that we addressed. We also had Alex Shumatoff, who used to come in and he used to do lectures for our school about the local Native Americans that had lived there.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and people probably don't think about it, but in Westchester County where I grew up, we very much remembered the Native Americans that were there.
Really?
My elementary school, which was built, my grade was actually the first one there at that elementary school. It was Pequannock. And that was named for the people that were there.
Yes, that's definitely Native American.
Yeah. And, even like Katona is named for Chief Katona.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of remembrance. And I mean, even though it's not good, obviously, to have Native Americans as a mascot, that's not nice.
Yeah.
But our high school did have, John Jay was the Indians, So that there was this overlying theme, that was going on where we were still learning about the area, how it was settled.
That's good.
So I think that kind of clued me in for my lifelong journey for my love of history.
You already got a head start.
Yeah, I already had a head start because, I think I might have been like 7 or 8 when I started looking at that book when our town was young. It was actually written in the 1940s by the high school students from North Salem.
By the high school students?
They put it together,
really?
Yeah, in a book, the history of it. So they had fascinating things in there, like about the Leatherman, about the caves, and,
wow.
all sorts of things that had happened over time. The fact that there used to be little factories, little itty-bitty cottage factories that were built along the Titticus River where now actually the reservoir is. And, that was, there's this whole level of history that, we kind of addressed, and all us kids when, Titticus Reservoir got drained, and they did that to kill off the algae and the seaweed and everything because it's a reservoir feeding New York City. There's all these bottles, and there's these little pieces of metal, and of course, people were looking for coins, and and all sorts of little artifacts. So, that's the reason why they're all there, is because people had lived along that river for so long, and of course, the Native Americans had also lived along that river. But, one of those things was, that dolmen. And because of that, that clued me in because they tried to say that the glaciers had actually placed the boulder there.
All right, you might have placed that boulder there. Okay, what happened to all those little rocks that's using as a pedestal to hold up that big boulder?
I know. If you actually go to NEARA, it's NERA.org, you will find a whole wealth of information on different places in the Northeast and New England. Inscriptions, dolmens, passage graves.
I think that's a great idea.
It's just fascinating.
And I think that's an excellent day trip to take your children.
It is. It really is. Even like what we first opened up with is Indian Well State Park, and that's I like state parks. I'm one of those people, one of those state park junkies that likes to get the yearly pass because you just pay for your yearly pass, and then you can go to any state park you want to in Connecticut, and you get a free pass for the summer. So I enjoy that a lot. And one of the places that I kind of stumbled in on was Indian Well a while ago. And now it's interesting because Indian Well, the actual well part of it, if you will, is a part of the state park, but it's not actually the part that's connected to the beach. It's on the other side of it, the other side of the road.
Really?
So you can actually access that year-round. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't really suggest it in winter. It gets really icy. I've done it, but it's really icy. And, you know, it's just, it's such an easy little walk to go from the little parking lot and just follow the river on back and all the way to the waterfall. And it's worth it. It's truly worth it. There's a lot of folks that have been using that as a swimming hole for many years.
Yes.
And,
yes, you just explained to me why. Yes.
Yeah, the well has had a bit of history to it. Now, they call it Indian Well, but you know, it's kind of funny what an Indian well actually is. An Indian well is from woodcraft lore, you know, what you do when you're surviving out in the woods. That if you want some fresh water and you're near something like a lake or a river or what have you, what you do is you dig out a pit, say roughly, you know, they said like 18, 20 inches across and about 6 inches down. And you dig this maybe, you know, just maybe about like a couple paces away, in other words, about 9 feet, I guess, away from the actual water itself. And it should fill up in that area, you know, with water, because you want to dig it about 6 inches below where the water level is.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you scoop out the water a couple of times, and the water that fills it up the third time should be really fresh water, and it's purified, and it's only going to have, you know, maybe some plant fibers, you know, not actually, you know, anything that might be living in the water per se. So that would be what people would use, you know, a quick method of being able to get fresh drinking water when maybe you were out in the woods or you were hiking or whatever, exploring. And so, you know, they have lore. State of Connecticut is so funny. Obviously, I grew up in New York State, so I think this is funny. At every single waterfall in the state of Connecticut, they have a Romeo and Juliet story, Native American style. And they talk about an Indian princess. Now, people, truly, Native Americans did not have royalty. Let's get that straight, okay? There is no such thing as an Indian princess. If you think you have one in your history, you're wrong. And, you know, she supposedly wanted to marry this brave from another nation. And she couldn't do that. She found out that she was going to be betrothed to somebody else, you know, the standard line, you know. And so she went and she committed suicide and jumped off, you know, into the well, or jumped off the waterfall, or depending on which story it is.
Yes, yeah.
Whichever place, whichever waterfall it is. She jumped to her death. And of course, her love came and found out that she was dead. So he went and he jumped off too. And, you know, it's corny, okay? It's drama. Yeah. It's old style drama. And, you know, obviously we can't have all these people that have just decided to die at waterfalls in the state of Connecticut. Because everybody I talked to, because I wanted to find out more about the lore, they told me the same silly story.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't believe that. You know, Indian Well is a really sacred place. And, you know, when I stumbled in on it, you know, for me, growing up out in the woods, I got used to talking to nature, if you will. And maybe that isn't everybody's experience. But for me, that's something that I've always done. You know, I've communicated with the land, you know, the trees, animals, if you will. And in such a way that I learn things from it. Because on a soul level, I do hear it. So, you know, when I stumbled onto Indian Well, I realized that I had stumbled onto something very important. And so I spent a lot of time going there for meditation, for prayer, and I talked. And, you know,
I know that's a big part of you. You talk about Indian wells quite often.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily that it's a big part of me, but I think that, there's just so few places that are like that these days. They're between the worlds, that are open, that are available, that haven't been mowed down by some plow.
Exactly, yes, you're right.
For some big building somewhere. They keep paving paradise, and putting up parking lots. So I think that for Indian well, that truly struck me. Now, that place, it opens up to you differently if you approach it in a sacred way. And I've put these stories in my blog. Some of the things that have happened there are pretty freaky. I talk a little bit about that, actually, one of them when I'm at the well. And
can you share one with us?
Yeah, I can kind of share one with you. Okay, I went down to Indian Well right after the ex had left, who shall remain nameless. And I was hurting a lot. Now, mind you, that waterfall is literally falling inside a stone womb. That place is sacred to women's mysteries. And I needed to be reborn. So I went down there. And yes, I did immerse myself in those waters on purpose, deliberately, ritually. And I did feel a shift. I felt a lot of things change. And I did spend a good bit of time there, finding my own healing, if you will. Now, it's always been kind of odd, the way that these sacred places always find a way to speak to you, the way Spirit will find a way to speak to you. That well does talk. Sometimes, people become messengers too. And at one point, I did realize that there was somebody else that was coming down the path. And so, I kind of got myself off to the side. And, she had brought her dog down. Her dog played for a little bit, and then she went and she brought her dog back. And I realized that she had forgotten her towel. So I went trotting after her, and I'm like, "You forgot your towel." And, she said how much she liked actually coming there. And she said it was so peaceful. And I told her it was a sacred place. And that I had actually come down there for healing. And we talked, and I told her, I was about to go through a divorce. And, she said, she just turned to me and said, "You know what?" She's like, "Everything is going to open up for you again. And when it does, it's going to be a really beautiful thing, and it will happen."
Amazing, amazing.
And this woman didn't know me. So, it's kind of interesting because I did put my prayers into the well, and I kind of did get my answer, because I was really very scared, I mean, how could you not be?
I know you've recommended the well to quite a few people.
Yeah.
And last year, you guys went down to the well.
We did a healing ritual.
Yes. And I
think powerful.
Everybody I talked to afterwards said they physically felt like they changed. Something inside them changed.
Absolutely.
And it was the most powerful thing they ever done.
The thing is, the key word is that you have to approach it in a sacred way. If you're not used to working with Spirit, I don't think it would open up for you necessarily the same way. And I don't show up empty-handed. I bring an offering.
Yes.
Always bring an offering when you go to a sacred place. You need to give something back. And
any ideas of what you would bring to an offering for somebody that now is watching this?
It should be appropriate to what it is, that maybe you need. And if it isn't actually appropriate to maybe something you need, at least bring something for the animals. Obviously, traditional Southwest Native American offerings would be things like cornmeal. I've brought down bread. I've brought flowers. Occasionally, I've given up some money to it.
Really?
I've given things to the well that I needed to have transformed, you know. Because, you know, even just in terms of it's a stone womb, you know, therefore, you know, what you put in there will transform. It can be reborn. And that was even the whole goal of when I went down there for my very first ritual bath, if you will, at the well. So it's a really special place. You know, one of the things that happened that when in my conversations with the well, if you will, is that it was telling me that it was connected somewhere, somehow much deeper. And my first thought was, it's like, okay, because I haven't actually gone, you know, all the way down or anything like with goggles. I can't really see anything under there. I don't see well underwater anyway. That there was probably like an underground stream or something. And then I found out what happened was in the 1930s, 40s, when that park was actually created as a result of the civilian corps, that what they did was that they took these boulders and they actually put them into the well, because the well may be deep right now, but it was actually much deeper. It was actually said to be bottomless. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So that was a surprise, you know, when I was actually looking for that, because it just, you know, the connection with the other world and the underworld, if you will, that was one of those things that really stood out for me. So, you know, Indian Well, if you want to go see it, it's really, really easy to find. All you have to do is look it up on Google. You know, it's on the state parks list. You can get directions. It's right off of Howe Avenue in Shelton, and you just go to the first parking lot on your right. It's open all year, so it's the non-pay parking lot, and you just park there. You walk across the road, and you follow the river back. You just follow the trail back, and it's not that far. It's really not that far in. You know, I wouldn't say it's more than 500 feet in. So,
really?
You know, it's
do you plan on having another ritual there soon?
Well, no, I think I'll wait until the weather is warmer and the water is warmer, because it's a mountain fed and it's very, very cold.
Quite chilly. Do you think you might have one this summer?
I might. Hint, hint. I think, I do believe that we'll have another ceremony, and it's a lovely
maybe
area.
Maybe a private thing, you know, get a couple of us together.
Yeah, it's a lovely space, and you know, there's at least one picnic table usually out there as well. Yeah, so.
You ever thought about going there just to sit and have a picnic by yourself, even just?
Oh, I do that.
Really?
I go out there. I collect water from the well for healing for people. I send it out to them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, I do believe that the water in there actually does have curative properties, and I have sent it off to people, and whether they, you know, whatever they want to do with that, you know, they use that in their rituals or for purification or what have you. But one of the things that my first teacher taught me, and this is the important part about why you probably should want to visit sacred places if you live in the area, all these different places, is that my first teacher, Rowan, did teach me that, you know, if you go and visit a sacred place, it forever becomes a part of your spirit. And then you can go and visit it effectively on the astral, if you will. You know, you can always return back there spiritually. So, you know, that really in and of itself is a powerful thing to connect with those places, and I do highly recommend it.
And that's the first footage we're going to see is
Indian Wells, and it's really pretty.
I haven't been there yet personally, but it's absolutely, totally, amazingly beautiful. I've seen the footage beforehand.
Yeah.
So, what was I going to say?
We're good.
Yes. I get a little shy sometimes, believe it or not. But anyways, Indian Wells is one of those places where we all want to connect with that part of us. And the reason why I want to see it is because, well, you can't see it very well in the video so much, but you said it looked like the womb.
Yes.
And that's really what I want to see, just to have that connection when you go there.
It's really quite amazing. And
I'm going to be hinting to her a lot.
Well, the snow's melted.
Yes,
and
yes.
We're getting our last
We'll have
snowstorm
to at
of
least
the
wait a
year.
few more weeks. It's still a little chilly.
No, we're good whenever
Really?
you
It's
want to
good
come
now?
down.
Oh,
you
really?
know. Yeah.
Oh, good.
This last snowstorm of the year won't last you long, so.
Yes, yes. So, yes, I can't wait. I'm excited. I'm excited. And I think I want to bring one of my children with us, too. I think that
Yeah.
would be nice.
Yeah, it's definitely
Yes.
something the kids should experience.
Yes, yes.
We'll have them bring their own little offerings, too.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Even just like birdseed.
Yes.
This is the perfect time of
absolutely.
year for birdseed, actually, too.
Yes, because there's
Yes.
nothing else, you know,
Yes.
for the birds
Yep.
to eat, so it's a very good offering.
Yes, that's a good idea. So I think here we are, and we're getting ready to see Indian Wells.
We're here at Indian Well, and this is another one of Connecticut's beautiful and historic sacred places. Most people don't know about this sacred well. It's just called Indian Well because the Native Americans did live here. There's actually was a fort, and this little stream, it's not really terribly small, but it goes down actually, and it goes into the Naugatuck River. And right along the Naugatuck, there used to actually be a fort that was actually built by the Native Americans to prevent the progress of the white man coming down the river. But this was actually a meeting place for a number of different nations where they also used to come together. That in of itself kind of was a clue to me that this was a sacred place. But I think one of the things that probably truly clued me in was when I came here some years ago, and I found out that the well opened up to me differently when I approached it in a sacred way. And since then, I've come here for a number of things. I've come here for meditation, prayer, if you will. We've actually done our women's healing ritual here, and it was really quite amazing because it's one of those places between the worlds where the divine and the mundane, you know, the earth are one. So it's definitely a place to come to when you need questions answered, when you need to find the way, when you feel maybe a bit lost. And it's also too very sacred, I think, for women. I don't know if you can probably see this in the video, but right behind me, that waterfall that's falling in there, that well is actually very, very deep. That's what they call it, the well. The waterfall has actually eaten out a chasm within the stone. So this is actually a stone womb that's behind me that is pouring forth. And I've actually ventured into it before. There's some little rock ledges on the inside if you ever decide to come here during the summer. You're not actually supposed to swim in it. But yeah, it's a lovely place. It's one of the local watering holes too. The kids like to climb up and jump on off the rocks into the well because it just is that deep. So I've had many spiritual experiences here. I'll just share one of them with you that I actually posted to my blog a while ago. There was a time when I needed some questions answered, and I was kind of upset because justice wasn't being found at the time. And I went inside the well, and I was sitting on the ledge, and I was kind of looking for an answer. Now, the well water here is incredibly pure. You can see right through it. The only thing that disturbs it that you can't see on the bottom is because the waterfall is falling so hard that it completely disrupts the surface of the water. So what I did is I put my arms out to stop the disturbance of the water so I could see down because I was told I would see a sign. And right up between my legs swam a snake, a big fat green snake. Now, I got out of the water pretty fast, but the fact is that snake really couldn't have hurt me anyway. Contrary to popular belief, water snakes don't actually hurt you in Connecticut. So that was my sign, you know, the serpent being one of the oldest symbols of the goddess, a symbol also too of truth, and in some sense of justice. So that was my answer for the day. And although things did not play out very quickly from that point forward, yes, that actually was the case. That is what I saw. But so, this is one of the things that really makes it sacred, is because, it's spiritually alive. And these places, I'm very glad it was actually preserved as a state park. I would hate to think what would have happened to it if it had not been a state park. It would not have been preserved like this. But everything happens for a reason. And the sacred site is still here. It's surrounded by hemlocks. I just saw a peace eagle, I believe, also known as turkey vulture, up there. And it's open all year round. There's still some icicles hanging up there. I wouldn't suggest it in the winter, but you can look it up in Google Maps, and you can come out here. It's not actually very far from the road, actually, and you can pay it a visit. And always bring an offering. Never show up empty-handed. And we're back. Yeah, that was Indian Well. And we also have a new camera person. We have Roger, who's going to be with us periodically. And he filmed that segment for us.
He did a very nice job.
Yeah, he did do a nice job. And Pam, who normally sits in our, little station there, and it does her magic with the videos and everything in the studio. She came out and was the mystery woman that was standing by the well. And yes, she is pregnant, and she's going to be having a little baby soon. And
couple weeks,
and it's going to be the first baby, if you will, born in the temple. And I'm excited.
That is very exciting. That's very exciting.
It's very exciting, and it was a very cool thing.
Yes, it was.
But yeah, so what we've also got too now is we've got the balanced rock that I was speaking about earlier.
Yes. That's the next footage we're going to be showing in a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And we took a day trip, and we hit a couple of places in a row. So, I wanted to be able to also to have a number of different sacred sites, that we could show to people. So you have a chance and opportunity to actually see them. It's, it's one thing to actually even just look at some of the pictures on the internet. It's another thing to see them.
Yes.
And like you were saying, this kind of stuff is not stuff that they talk about in school.
No. When I was growing up, it's amazing now that I'm adult that I'm learning about all the history that's around us in New England and even in Connecticut that we didn't talk about in school. I even remember my husband's aunt's mother is Native American, and she ended up being adopted. And what ended up happening was she doesn't even know her exact birth date because back then you had to hide it.
Right.
And they said but they grew up in a small town in Litchfield County, and even her daughter now is around our age,
right,
going to school, couldn't tell anybody that she was Native American because it was kind of shunned upon.
Yeah, it was.
So that's one of those hush-hush things that now they're not even going to teach you that in school. So I'm glad, our society's starting to get a little more open-minded, and now that I'm adult, I'm learning about these things that I feel that, I wish I learned in school. So I'm glad I'm learning them now, and then I can pass it on down to my children.
I think we've done a disservice by not teaching about the first Americans.
Yes.
And I think that we've done a real disservice on, not teaching about minorities in general in school.
Exactly.
And the history of the country. They touch on it sort of, but not really. It's kind of funny, not talking about it because, I didn't find out it was actually which nation the native blood came from until I was like 30.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I found out I was part Cherokee. I always knew I was part Native American, but I never knew which nation until my aunt told me and said, "They didn't tell you?" Because it was like, still hush-hush. I got myself into trouble once in school because they were teaching us about the Native Americans and the Pilgrims, like they normally do at Thanksgiving. And we were doing show and tell. We were supposed to make a craft, and I made a homemade bow and arrow set, and I shot somebody in the butt. And I somehow felt validated because the person was picking on me, not that I really hurt him. But I said, well, I'm part Indian. And, the teacher was just like, "Urgh." Well, parents got called in because I shot the little bow. And I remember my father being very, very uncomfortable when, the teacher, asked that question about, well, she says she's part Native American. Is that true?
Yeah.
And truly that never should have really come up in conversation. But that was the question.
But see, it's not that your father had to hide it. He almost felt like he would have to, because that was an unspoken. I think that's not something people would admit to. It's almost, why did they have to feel like they were ashamed?
Well, that was the thing. That isn't what they talk about now, because everybody's trying to mimic the Native Americans. They're trying to steal their traditions and religion, which they were forbidden to practice for many years.
Yes.
Which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But if you were Native American, if you were an Indian, you were considered to be a savage. Yes. And you had absolutely no place in society. Whereas, let's just say, like, a slave would have a place in society.
Yes.
A Native American did not have any place in society. So you were considered to be all the way on the bottom.
There's even Native American
non-human
slaves that nobody knows about. Like, that's the untalked about thing.
That's something else that's not talked about as well.
Exactly.
So, we don't know from these sacred sites what exactly, how they were created. Obviously Indian well is a natural feature. But with the case of, let's say, like the balanced rock, it's said to be Celtic or Celtiberian. There's some reasons, actually, for that. Other people have said, well, it is possible that the Native Americans could have been building in stone. That is possible, too. The people that were here, though, when the colonists, first arrived, though, they did not find them building in stone, however. So, there's a lot of parallels with things that you might find in the UK. Now, there are dolmens scattered all over Europe. They're both temples and burial chambers, and I think that's something that people forget about.
They just excavated one somewhere. I think it was, I want to say Ireland. I'm not really too sure. Right. Somewhere in that area, and because it was a burial place where they put their sacred. What is it that they would put down there? I remember we had a discussion about it a while ago. That it wasn't as a place where somebody was buried. It's actually a place where they put like an offering. They're sacred, like.
Well, it's interesting because even Gunjawamp has a feature of that.
Oh, really?
When we actually take a trip out there. And one of the chambers, the stone chambers that you can actually walk into, there is a separate shaft where, let's just say, an offering could actually have been put into that shaft.
Really?
While, that mound was actually all closed up. And, as they're finding out now, as they did when they were doing some excavation in the Orkneys, actually where the Scottish in me is from the Orkneys, that they found out, these places where the dead are buried, this isn't just a place for the dead. This is, has to do with the ancestors. It has to do with worship. These places are also temples. And, I think that's something that's kind of new to people. They got used to thinking of places as tombs. But when you think about it, we've carried over a lot of things from our pagan past into modern times, in addition to the fact that the cathedrals are actually built in Europe on old pagan temple sites. What do they put underneath them lots of times? There are burial chambers, there are vaults, there's catacombs. Yes.
That's funny. I was just reading an article today how they found the exact same thing you were talking about in Israel. And in that part of Israel, they excavated, it was like a Christian church. And then when they tore that down, they found out it was pagan ruins underneath that was still left there in Israel. And I thought that was quite interesting.
Well, that's one of those things that they also don't talk about, is that the Hebrew people were originally polytheists.
Yes.
And God did have a wife.
Yes.
Who became later known, as you may have actually heard of the goddess Astarte, maybe Ishtar. You know, these are names that you might remember, and you know, it's actually worth doing some research on, even just a little bit on the internet, because you'll find out so much, and it's just so amazing to read about these things.
Yes.
But you know, in the case of the balanced rock, there's also another location that apparently you can see it from the air if you actually do take a plane, I guess like from Danbury Airport, and if you actually fly over, that you can tell where there was like a round structure. The markings are still left, you know, in the hill.
Oh, wow.
Even though that they've been farming over it for countless generations now, you know. So it's, I've also been told that there are a number of stones in the area. Some of them have some markings. There's some people that told me that they believe that they have a stone circle in their backyard, you know. There's some things going on over there. We don't really know a whole lot, but you know, one of the things that happens, like in the Dolmen building, is that they like to build in granite in the UK too, just like the balanced rock. The only difference is that, you know, that boulder, which lots of times over in the UK, if you have a dolmen, you'll have a flatter stone, if you will. It'll be rectangular over the top. You know, the ones that are here, the dolmens that are here are more round in shape, but it's granite.
Yes.
You know, that's a continuation. There was an archaeologist that came out to the Hammond Museum, which I also mentioned in the footage that you're going to see that came out years ago. And he talked about the Ogham script that he had actually found in it. And there was also, there was 6 burial chambers over in Danbury, which unfortunately got bulldozed over. Oh. He was not allowed to do excavation.
Really?
Yeah, because, you know, the problem is that people were treating these things like they're root cellars, and they're not root cellars. No. They were not built with metal tools. Oh. That should be people's first clue. And that there have been, you know, there's been Ogham script that's been found. There's some Viking runes that have actually been found too. And something, you know, even from the Cherokee side with Chief Joseph, I did find something very interesting, that there was a small Mesopotamian tablet that he had been wearing around his neck that he said had been handed down to him from people that had come into, you know, his nation that were white.
That's amazing.
And you think about that, you know, and at that point they had no way to even read that writing at the time. They can now. Yes. But, you know, it's really quite fascinating. There was obviously a connection between, you know, the people that were at the other side of the ocean and the people that were in North America. Yes. And, you know, obviously this is something that has happened, you know, repeatedly, I think, over time. So I think we don't give our ancestors enough credit. Probably not only the Native American ancestors, you know, that some of you may have, the people that were here originally, but also to the people of Europe, because, you know, people were obviously knowing how to navigate, and they made ships that were worthy, you know, to sail through all that water to get over here. So, you know, it's, I think it's going to be more fascinating as time goes on when they really start doing more and they can find out more. One of the sites that was dated at Gunjiwamp was the year 455, which doesn't sound like it was really all that long ago, but you know, one of the things that these the dolmens and such, where the time period that they come out of the Copper Age, effectively, and that is between, you know, 2500 and maybe like 3000, you know, BC. So, you know, some of these things, in so many of the buildings, they have little openings and stuff that shine directly through, like on the winter solstices and on the equinoxes.
Yes.
There's a lot of interesting coincidences. But, you know, one of the places that I do highly recommend is nera.org.
But that's not Native American then. That wouldn't be Native American, would it?
The case is out. I mean, even like with Gunjiwamp, which we're going to show in another show. That'll take up a whole show because the site's pretty big. You know, there's Native American burial grounds there. They did live there. There was a nation that was living there. But, you know, the Gunjiwamp, older buildings, the chambers and such, the stone processional, there's actually a stone circle there that nobody talks about, too. Not the one that they talk about on the internet. There's another one there. Just like the one in Massachusetts on Burnt Hill. You know, these things are probably even, you know, much older than we're probably giving people credit for. And were they actually Native American? They're definitely, we don't know, but they're definitely ceremonial. The case is still out. But I would highly recommend that people, you know, explore them, do their own history, and maybe, you know, make up your own mind on, you know, what you personally feel that these things might be. And also, too, if you want to check out the Pantheon Temple, because this is a Pantheon Temple show, you want to go to pantheontemple.org, and you can find out more about us and anything that we may have going on.
I want to know because I know we talked about going to other places that are sacred. What are some other ideas for people to look forward to that we plan on going to?
Well, I want to go back to America's Stonehenge. Now, I understand that those stones have been rearranged, if you will, by non-archaeologists. And it's kind of a tourist trap. But there are some things up there that people want to see.
Where's that?
That's in New Hampshire.
Okay.
It's Mystery Hill. There's Burnt Hill in Massachusetts, which is a stone circle. I want to go there. There's actually a stone-carved head in Preston, Connecticut.
Really?
Really.
A stone-carved head.
It's amazing.
In Preston, Connecticut.
There are all these little places, you know, that you can find out about. There's even there's a dolmen in New Jersey. There's some in Massachusetts. They're all scattered pretty much along the coastlines. So, you know, it goes on up. So obviously there was a seafaring people, if you will, who liked to work in stone. I think that is unmissable, you know. Whichever cultural group they may have come out of, we don't know. But
I can't wait for the next upcoming shows.
Yeah, well, I think what's more fun is just for us to go out there and visit them, and I encourage everybody else, you know, to take a field trip and go out and see your sacred sites in the Northeast.
I think that's why it's most exciting for me, because Elisa's actually bringing out something that most people wouldn't know about. How else would you know about these? I didn't know about these, or about these two places that you're showing video footage of. I never even heard about until you talked about them, and you're really getting a word out. Yeah.
So I guess we'll go ahead and we'll show the balanced rock now. That started it all for me anyway.
Yes.
Blessed be everybody. Hi. I'm Reverend Alicia Lyon-Folberth, and with me also too is Roger Allen. We've taken a little bit of a trip today back to my old hometown of North Salem, New York. And behind me is the balanced rock, and the sign says it's from the glacial era, but it's really not. If you can see, you've got these 5 limestone rocks that are actually holding up this giant pink granite boulder. I went to a lecture at the Hammond Museum here in North Salem some time ago, and there's an archaeologist who was speaking on this, and he was talking about how the limestone actually isn't native to North Salem. Actually, nor is this pink granite. This pink granite actually comes from a place in Poughkeepsie, New York, which is nowhere near here. But also, too, I have my own conclusions as to where maybe some of this might have gone. They said that this was the only standing piece here when the farmers got here. But, you know, there's rocks, many rocks, that have actually gone in to support the road that's running right by, Route 116. And that way, also too is Titicaca River, which used to be a very large river, and at one time it was actually supporting mills and factories further on down. But you know, this is a dolmen. It's rather like, you know, the other ones that you might find, say, in Ireland, where you have these smaller stones supporting the large capstone, if you will. So this would have been an entrance to a passage grave. And this is all that's left, like many that are over in Ireland, where the rest of the mound of dirt that would have covered it has all been since washed away because it's been so long. To the best of my knowledge, this has never actually been excavated, although people have applied to actually do some archaeology here. But again, this is one of those places in, you know, the Northeast that people don't usually speak of. I know about it because I grew up here, so everybody always knew about the balanced rock. We're also going to be showing you some more pictures too of places like Gunjewamp, and you can also see more of what we're all talking about. And this is very easy to find in North Salem, New York. It's right along Route 116. You can easily find it in Google if you want to take a drive out and take a look.
Peace and blessed be, 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 peace and blessed be. Peace and blessed be, peace and blessed be.
We believe in
peace and blessed be.
We believe in
peace and blessed be.
We believe in
peace and blessed be. Peace and blessed be.
We believe in
peace and blessed be.
peace in Oxford,
Peace and blessed be.
peace in Camp 2.
Peace and blessed be.
Don't forget Camp 4.
Peace and blessed be.
Peace in Camp 1.
Peace and blessed be.
Peace in Camp 3.
Peace and blessed be.
Peace and blessed be.
Peace and blessed be. Peace and blessed be. Peace and blessed be. The people are growing wiser of the lies that have been our demise. And it's carried us back to our roots. The old religion is bearing new fruits. We're banding together to stand for the sake of our goddess and her man. Around the maple we'll dance and sing in celebration of everything. Oh, say, can you hear the secrets they want us to fear? Oh, say, do you know the truth that is starting to grow? Branch out, ground with your feet and dig in. Breathe out, let People are growing wiser of the lies that have been our demise, and it's carried us back to our roots. This old religion is bearing new fruits, and we're banding together to stand for the sake of our goddess and her man. Around the maple we'll dance and sing in celebration of everything. Branch out, ground with your feet and dig in. Breathe out, let the journey begin. Oh, say, can you hear the secrets they want us to fear? Oh, say, do you know the truth that is starting to grow? Branch out, ground with your feet and dig in. Breathe out, let the journey begin.
Keepers of the Flame is produced by the Pantheon Temple. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider donating to the Pantheon Temple. We are a 501c3 nonprofit temple and the first Wiccan and Pagan temple in the state of Connecticut. It is our dream to someday have land in a building. Please help us achieve this goal. And for more information about us and our events, please go to our website at www.pantheontemple.org. Please visit paganodyssey.com for Beltane, a Pagan Odyssey Festival, Connecticut's oldest and original pagan festival by the Pantheon Temple. And please visit Keepers of the Flame at our new website at www.keepersoftheflametv.com.
Go where the fires are high and the candles glow. Take me down to that magical place where they're dancing and swaying at a feverish pace. Take me away on a mystical ride, moving through the veil to the other side. Fill me up with the spirit songs of power and love's alive. Take me down through the 7 gates where I'll cast my being to the hands of fate. Take me down to the dragon's lair where myth and legend ride the air. Let me rise on the messenger's wings. Let me see what the future brings. Fill me up with the spirit songs of power and love's alive. Take me down where the pagans go, where the fires are high and the candles glow. Take me down to that magical place where they're dancing and swaying at a feverish pace. Take me away on a mystical ride, moving through the veil to the other side. Fill me up with the spirit songs of power and love.